Hey guys, so it was really easy to decide upon a topic to talk about for this week's podcast episode because it's kind of just a run on and a conclusion from last week's, where I spoke about the posts that I found on the episode forum that kind of went through in detail how gems affect the algorithms and how the algorithm now favors stories with gems in. So if you don't have gems in your stories, you're a little bit screwed by the algorithm. So you need to put gems in those stories or nothing's really going to happen. You're not going to get the reads that you did. Starting a new story is like hell. It's the worst. Episode really have forced authors to put gems in their stories. And this is what I want to talk about today. This real... They were brought in as a choice. You can put them in if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to. And that was fine. If you wanted a little extra, cash, I guess. Not very much, because, episode always takes most of the dimes made. But anyway, that was fine. But if you didn't want to, you didn't have to. It didn't affect you. Nothing would happen. It just means that you didn't have gems in your stories. Okay. But then they brought in a new algorithm, and then they forced authors to put the gems in. Which puts readers in a really odd place to be, because what you have is an app that advertises itself for 12 plus. And I'm really, really confused as to how they think these 12, 13-year-olds are going to afford all this money to buy gems. Because if you think how many chapters, how many stories readers are reading in a day or in a week, it's a lot. And you want readers to put gems in every chapter. Otherwise, they're a bit screwed for their store. I mean, seriously, you don't get seen. So you want these 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, however old, to keep spending money in the app to buy these gems so that they can read the stories. But they aren't only reading one author. They're reading multiple, like several and more, like every day. I'm confused why do you think all these children are like little billionaires? Where are they getting the money from? Not discounting the fact that, does episode not understand that there has been a global pandemic for nearly a year and people's finances have been heavily affected? I mean, unemployment is at a record high. Do you really think people are going to be spending money on gems? So instead of bringing in ways to earn gems, more gems, in the app, they don't. They just give more gem questions. Because in an episode original story, you have 4 gem questions in one chapter. And usually most of them are, seriously, not gem question worthy. If you recall, I didn't finish it because it was just really bad. The Christmas one, every time they asked us to change our clothes, they wanted us to pay gems and like 29 gems for a cloth choice. So we ended up wearing a dirty old tattered apron through the whole frickin' story. I wasn't happy. Like, it doesn't make any sense. How can you have an app that is targeted to... I mean, we're going to ignore the fact that your stories are clearly not for 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds because, it's a bit, teen pregnancies and, oh, this boy has treated me really badly. He must be really in love with me. Yeah. The same old, tired drivel. But where exactly are these... Where? Or are every single reader who reads episode stories billionaires? Because apparently this is true. There's more billionaires in the world than I had been led to believe. It's who? I would like to know who in the boardroom was thinking, how can we make more money? How can we make more money? So instead of, bringing in a system kind of more like YouTube where you have ads in the story, or something a bit more realistic in terms of what people can manage, and it's something that won't cripple the writers. Because clearly by installing the system, and we're putting gems in our chapters because you've made us, we're also shooting ourselves in the foot because our readers don't have gems to read everyone's stories. Like, I feel like I'm at a bit of an advantage being writing for LGBTQ stories because there aren't that many stories in the app. So maybe I'm at a bit of advantage. I don't know. But I still don't want to put gems in a story. They ruin a story. They limit the enjoyment that the reader has. And it's just... I really didn't want to put them in. But on Sunday, I started putting them in. The Forbidden Pleasures. And if you read the newer chapters, you'll know that they are there. Because, episode and stuff. And for instance, when I had to restart Forbidden Pleasures, the straight version, that the original story had always been in the top 100 consistently for 3 years. Without even updating it, it would be in the top 50. And it got consistently really good reads. It had nearly 16 million reads by the time they deleted it. Which, it's still a sore subject for me, to be honest. It's still something that yeah. But when I started doing it again, despite updating it daily, it didn't move. It didn't move anywhere in the algorithm. It just stayed where it did. Previously, with the old algorithm, you could update daily and you could successfully move up the more reads you got. And the higher you got up in the algorithm, the more people saw your story, the more people would read it, you'd get higher, and you get the deal, right? But it wasn't moving anywhere. Forbidden Pleasures, the LGBTQ version, again, always successfully in the top 100, and suddenly when the new algorithm comes in, we drop out of that, and we stay, without even updating, towards the 125, 130 mark. So we're getting consistent reads, but not as much, obviously, because it's not as high in the algorithm, so less people see it, less people are inclined to scroll really far in the algorithm, let's face it. That's why some people who do like romance stories or drama stories tend to put their stories in like the horror section or the mystery section. If you go to the mystery section or the horror or the one of the other lower ones, you'll see a lot of romance stories there. I mean, it's annoying if you want to find a story of that genre, but I understand why authors do that. It's a good way to get your story seen. It's a good way to pick up on your story to get it traction, and then you can put it back into romance, and people are reading your stories, and it's going higher up in the algorithm. And okay, I feel like there's something wrong with my mic today. I don't know. Maybe it's my earphones, maybe? I don't know. But it sounds like my voice is going up and down, and it's annoying me, but it is what it is. Let's hope this turns out okay. Because I have to record something else tomorrow, and if my microphone is screwed, so am I. Anyway, as I was saying, so I decided, okay, we have to put these gems in because I've worked too hard on these stories, like 4 years of hard work down the drain. So I started and I put gem choices in, and it didn't even take a week for Forbidden Pleasures, the LGBTQ version, to get into the top 50. When I last checked what ranking that was yesterday, it was at 38. Because of gems. Your story isn't getting high because of talent anymore. It's not getting high because of anything. It's getting there because people are paying gems on your story, and that's it. The more gems that are in your story, the more chances you have of people paying them and getting higher. Forbidden Pleasures, the straight version, for the first time ever, is in the top 90. Now that's great. Like, on a story level, that's great, because it's something I think it was April or June, no, April, when they completely yeeted the story from the app. And I was struggling, trying to recapture what potential I know that story has. 16 million views. You don't get that on a lot of stories. Obviously there are more. There are stories with more reads, obviously. But personally, for me, but it's kind of a hollow victory because it's something I didn't want to do. I didn't rub my hands together and go, oop, more cash for me. Nah, because I know my readers don't want gems. I know they don't want them. And if I had a choice, I wouldn't put them in. Like, I didn't put them in. Yes, I have written stories with gem choices in them, but they are usually kind of more 10 chapters long, and I've really thought out the gem questions, and they have impacts on the story, blah blah blah. And the gems aren't in every single chapter. But that's not the point. I didn't want to put gems into the stories. I've written the first 3 chapters of the new story, all done. I was starting to write the 4th when I learned of this news, so now I have to go back and put gems in, because guess what? I actually want this story to do something. It's a really good story. It has potential. I kind of wanted to take the with Forbidden Pleasures. What I did was I kind of took the genre of that downbeaten, really naive, innocent, really easy to control and manipulate heroine, and that kind of gruff, bad boy, rich love interest who treats her like crap, but suddenly she's in love and it's a thing. I took that and I kind of messed around with it. I kind of made fun of it. That was the point of that story. Like, that was the point of it. I was making fun of those stories. The irony is, the stories that I was kind of making fun of, that I was kind of highlighting and being like, hey, these are kind of odd, are still there in the app, which is kind of weird. But it is what it is. So what I did with the new story is kind of take the same concept. You know, episodes are kind of going with the whole mafia theme these days. So I've kind of gone with that theme, but twisted it. Like I did with Forbidden Pleasures. So maybe I'll get the same kind of luck. Who knows? Who knows? I kind of initially had a real problem with using the whole mafia thing because I didn't want to kind of make that kind of thing okay. I mean, and then when I really thought about it, it was like, maybe you can do something different. So take the tired old theme of these kind of bad boy mafia dudes and then just really kind of amp it up somewhat and change things so that it's different. So kind of the same but different, like Forbidden Pleasures anyway. And I've had this before. I'm clearly not saying we should make fun of these stories and that they don't deserve to be anywhere. That's not what I'm saying. And you should totally read what you want. I mean, if you enjoy reading something, then you should read it. If you enjoy watching something, you should read it without guilt. I mean, seriously. This world is a really horrible, horrible place. And little things that you find pleasure in, don't let people guilt you into feeling bad about that. Because, that shouldn't be the case. Ever. My point was always kind of making more fun of episode. In that they target this audience, 12 plus, but I have no problem making these stories that clearly aren't great for teenagers. What example are you setting? Like I say it all the time, I use this example all the time because it's the best one. The story about the girl who wakes up and she finds her neighbor in her bedroom and he's going through her underwear and he's like holding her bra or something. It started with a bra, I think it's called. And then they're dating. And then they start dating. If you wake up in the middle of the night, or if you go into your bedroom and you find someone standing there going through your underwear drawer, just run and call the cops. Because that is a red flag right there. There's a red flag. There's a red flag. Okay? I watch a lot of crime documentaries. And I can tell you that a lot of serial killers start at that point. Just saying. That's not even me being dramatic at this point. That's just truth. But episode turned that into a romance. So, at the time they put a sex scene behind a gem choice. If we'd have done that, the whole story would have been, boom, deleted, gone. And in fact, when you read their stories, their original stories, it's so eye-opening that a lot of people who start writing in the app take from episode original stories as example of what they can write because they've been vetted by episode, right? They're episode stories. They've been reviewed, they've gone over, the storyline, the things that they say are fine. Yeah, but they break their own terms of service all the time. But when we copy it, we go, because this is fine to say, this type of thing here, we get called on it. Like in the Christmas story, there's a threat in it, a physical threat. I wrote a really funny choice where one brother is being completely dramatic to the other one, and it's just really funny. Like sibling stuff, right? But they perceived it as a threat. and I had to completely change it. It wasn't as funny because the whole point was gone. So, the whole point of this was to say, you know what? Your targeted audience are apparently billionaires, in which case, can we, I don't know, do something about that? Put some cash my way or something? Hey, how you doing? Join my Patreon, maybe. I'm joking, but if you want to join my Patreon, you should totally do that. You should totally do that. There are many tiers, so you should do that. We have fun. And we get to write a little bit more mature than episode, where I can't even write the word breast. I'm terrified to write the word chicken breast, just in case they call me on inappropriate language. I wrote the word breast once. And yes, it was against terms of service. I mean, I've never forgotten that. It was hilarious. There are so many things that I've been called on that I just... Well, another one of my favorites was, I thought of the name of 4 funny named bars and pubs. It was where she was going to interview the next day for a job, right? And so I named one Jack the Stripper, because, play on words, Jack the Ripper, right? Well, that was a very bad idea. No, called on that. Couldn't do that. That was wrong. I don't understand why I couldn't play on words for a serial killer from the 1890s. Like, what the hell? Bit weird. Like, it was really weird. But they can totally fleece people out of money by creating more reasons to put gems in. Because before long, you'll be having authors being allowed, or maybe they are now, I don't know, to put gem choices in for clothing options. So, I mean, and there will be authors who will do it. And who some of them will be. Gems just really ruin the story. It takes away the enjoyment, the freedom. The whole point of reading is that it's this place to escape into. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. You can read these stories and escape into a world. And it doesn't matter what world it is. I mean, it's a romance or a drama, a mystery, a horror. You escape into it, and you shouldn't be restricted to gems because maybe you can't afford it. So you can't do what you want. The freedom's gone. So's the enjoyment. And it sucks. It really sucks. I get that episode is a business. I get it. But create ways to earn the gems. But then by doing that, you're not really giving episode money, are you? Because you're not paying episode anything. And that's the point. That's the whole point. By earning gems, like, I don't know what kind of thing you would do for that. Like, I don't know, like a daily wheel or something like they do in Lovestruck. Like, you're not getting their money, are you? And it's not like they don't get it from advertising anyway. Episode have just gone really greedy. Really, really greedy. I always use Lovestruck as an example. I get they had drama recently over authors and payments and stuff, but in regards to content for readers, it's always top notch. And they never neglect LGBTQ readers either, which is insane and amazing, because episode just never even contemplate that at all. Ever. Like, they don't care. Like, they really don't. They do choose gender love stories, and it's like, there's your LGBTQ story, and you're like, oh, okay. Written by a straight author who has no idea what it's like to be gay. Listen, it's not that different to being straight, right? But there are things that an LGBTQ author can put in to make it more enjoyable for that reader, because there are things we've experienced, things that, inside jokes, stuff that a straight person wouldn't think of. Like, for instance, I mentioned it in, I think it was the very first vlog podcast where I was talking about clothing choices. Everything was very girly. It was dresses, and I kind of mentioned that actually not all your readers, if you're choosing the female love interest, not all your readers there are femme. Some are butch, some are, they don't want dresses. So there's no thought. It's those things that they don't think of, but they don't care. It's like, never mind. But Love Struck, and there's one gem choice. One in every chapter. One. And I have to tell you, I spent a tiny bit of money on gems in Love Struck. Not very much. And I've been reading it for like 3 years. I think I've spent probably about $20. Probably. Yeah. So I don't always choose that. In fact, I hardly ever choose that gem choice. But I still enjoy the story. But with episode, it's completely centered on gems. And readers are suffering because they can't get the enjoyment out of the story that they once had. And in turn, authors are suffering because readers only have so much money to buy gems, which are limited. So, what's the point? So, that is the end of the podcast. I hope I kind of conveyed what I wanted to say. I feel like I was a bit obvious. Gems are all well and good and all, but when you're forced to use them, and there's only so many gems to go around, authors are suffering, aren't they? But readers are too, because you're forcing them to pay money to get gems. And they don't have money, or they don't have enough money. I'm not going to go into the financial things, but again, unless your readers are billionaire 12-year-olds, like, who your readers? Richie Rich? What the hell? So I'm going to say goodbye now, and I hope I've given something to think about. I think probably a lot of people have thought about this since the whole algorithm has been installed. People probably foresaw this as well when Episode introduced gems, because Episode always kind of get more greedy, and that's why they kind of force good authors away from the platform. And it's with other reading apps coming in, poaching authors. Episode really has to step up their game, but they don't seem to be. They seem to be more focused on what they can get, which, as I said, I get, it's a business, but also, you've got loyal readers, and you've got writers who put a lot of time into stories, and you're screwing them all, which isn't fair. So, until next time, which will probably be next week, and I will probably be talking about the content, the stories. For an app that's 12 plus, how come all your stories are kind of adult? Original stories. So, that'll be fun. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.